So, just two quick questions. One, who here has ever done a software switch? A software switch. Change property Who's done more than one?
Who's done more than two?
So it can be done, right? So what you're telling me is it can be done. Who here likes change? Likes change. Wow, look at you guys. Glutton for punishment. Well, our panelists today have made the change, and we wanted you to hear directly from them what their experiences were. And I'll turn it over to Brad Jarvis, the president of Tenant Inc., to talk with our panelists about their experiences with change and change management.
Thanks, Travis. And I think I've met most all of you here before, but just in case I haven't, I am Brad Jarvis. Look forward to connecting up with you after this is over during the cocktail hour. So, and again, the discussion today is on change management, and it goes beyond just software changes. But before we get started, I do want to just introduce the panel. So we have Pam Domingue with Storage Solution, right?
Storelocal self-storage.
Storelocal self-storage. Now that's right.
Storelocal.
Good correction. That's also Jesse Harmon with Storelocal self-storage.
Yeah, Storelocal self-storage.
Key lock, whatever you want to call it. Yes. Storelocal. Yeah, that's Storelocal storage, right? And Dane Elefante with Platinum and Storelocal storage.
Storelocal.
Welcome. So you guys know that my roots are not in self-storage. Actually, it's in tech and software. And I've helped in my career help a lot of companies transition. Some of the transitions were from moving from a startup to rapid growth. In other cases, it was a turnaround and or realignment. But in all the cases, all that involves a lot of change, trying to change organizations and change the process. Whether it is a turnaround or you're on an upward trajectory and you're growing very rapidly. And so as we get going, Travis, when he asked me to do this, he described this session as change is hard, it sucks, nobody likes it. So I think some of you are not being truthful. But sometimes it needs to happen. And I think before we get into change management, one of the things I wanted to do is kind of start with a basic question that I think is essential for the success of change, and that is, why change? And you all have done that, and I'm kind of curious what your mindset was as you began to think, okay, it's time to make some changes, and maybe each of you could sort of share a little bit about, why you think it's important to change.
I think in order to get better, you have to change. And, a phrase that we talk about at Platinum all the time is if you're standing still, you're moving backwards, especially, with tech, the way that it's coming in, it's disrupting so many industries. If you're not being proactive, you're not looking at ways to provide better customer service, to create efficiencies. I mean, we're all expected to do more with less today, right? Everything's more expensive. Our personnel have to stretch further. We got to service our customers for more hours. So you always have to be looking for ways that you can better your business, or you're just going to get behind. Again, it's the old phrase, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't think that works anymore, And there's a lot of owners out there where I think the economy's just been so good forever. They've just kind of been doing the same thing. I'm 95%, I don't need to market. I don't need to do that. But, when the tide goes out, right, they say you find out who's swimming naked. And if you're not constantly as a business pushing yourself forward, you're not going to be great, and you're not going to be able to stay competitive in the long term, and somebody's going to own your business. So that would be my...
Justin?
Yeah, well, to piggyback on that, if anyone here is 95% and not doing rates, let me know. I'm going to acquire your facility. They call me the agent of change at Key Lock, Cedar Creek. I'm also called Teflon Don because people keep telling me no, and I just keep pounding forward, and everything just goes off me. But the only constant in life is change. I mean, we've all heard that, right? If you're not changing, you're not evolving, you're not getting better, as Dane was saying. And everything we do in any industry to continue to swim upstream is focusing on changing operations, changing technology, changing process, changing mindset. I mean, that's the biggest thing, right? Is changing mindset is usually the first key.
Yeah.
I mean, over the years, our customers have changed. Our customers are not the same, and we need
Aren't.
to keep up with them, and it's hard. And some of our software companies haven't decided or haven't figured out how to do that. And so you got to change. You got to find somebody who's in alignment with you, who wants to see the change, make it happen.
No, those are really good points, and you guys all touched on slightly different pieces. But the other thing is the need to change, and change is not constant. Like, you can go through periods of time, even decades, where there isn't a lot of change, and then the need to change grows rapidly or approaches you. And I think one of the things is the smart business leaders have woken up to the fact that we're actually in a fourth industrial revolution, and that's the digital transformation. And it's impacting every single industry, including physical goods and labor markets and all of that. And Pam, you mentioned about the changing consumer. There's a rapid change in consumer behavior, from the baby boomers moving on to Gen X and the millennials and Gen Z, and that is we're in a moment where there is very rapid change, and you really have to keep up with it in order to survive, really. And I think that's the thing that people need to recognize. You can, just a couple of quotes. Capgemini did a study, and they determined that digitally advanced companies are 26% more profitable than their peers. And the CEO of Accenture was mentioning that digital, or the lack of responding to what was going on, is the reason why over half of the Fortune 500 companies since 2000 no longer exist. And I think if you take a look at just a couple of these examples, it impacts, as we said, every industry, right? Who here still gets a newspaper delivered to their front door? Okay, a couple, two. I didn't even know they still printed them. It's physical, right? Yeah, okay. And then remember Blockbuster and Sears, and also, taxi cabs, etc. And one of the things that's common about all the changes, if you look up there, is the phone below or a screen. And I think one of the mistakes that a lot of people make in almost every single industry is the digital transformation isn't technology. It's not a software change. It is a reconfiguration of how the business operates. Okay, so the mistake that the newspapers made and Blockbuster made is, going digital means now customers can order their VCR online and then come pick up the VCR box, right? They didn't realize that this whole thing was going to a streaming content. They didn't even know what streaming content was, and it was completely disrupted. And newspapers they're still doing it, but it's the same mistake. We're going digital. We're going to put our articles online and hide it behind a paywall, like you're really going to pay for that. And, that's how you're going to get your news, and we're still going to control the news. They didn't see podcasts and feeds and everything streaming. I mean, I don't know, for those of you who are younger, where do you get your news? I doubt it. It's probably off TikTok and Twitter and X now. I mean, I get my news is off X. I set my feeds up, and then also I subscribe to Spotify, and I've got podcasts that I listen to and all that. But that's kind of how you get your news now. They didn't even see that happening. And then if you go all the way to the far side of the screen there, that's actually a picture of a car wash down the street from where I grew up. And that car wash it's on Harbor Boulevard over in Costa Mesa. It was there. It's been there for 40 years, operating exactly the same way for 40 years. And when you go there was about 17 to 19 employees on the property. Some of the guys doing the vacuuming up front and filling the gas, and then 2 or 3 cashiers, and then the ones that were wiping off the car and all that. And it just recently got torn down, and the picture below is the same property, fully rebuilt, fully automated, payment systems at the gates. 2 people are employed on the site, right? So that's a very physical product, but it's going through a complete digital transformation. And then the last thing I'll say is somebody mentioned earlier the grocery store, and I think you did, Jesse, and the self-checkout, right? Well, what I'm reading about where it's going next is, and this will also help with shoplifting and everything else, is when in order to enter the store, the smart stores in the future, you will have to be a known payer, and your payment identity and information will already be part of the process. And then you'll go in, and whatever you collect and put in your bag, you won't even need to check out. It'll be all
They're already doing that
RFID
now.
based. Yeah.
Amazon's.
And then as you just walk
Doing
out,
it now.
so there won't be shoplifting. There probably the employees there will be just the shelves, restockers and things like that. But that's kind of where it's going. So, with I wanted to kind of set that as a mindset up front. And I think as you look at it, my next question for you is, it's not about software changes, right? It's not about, I'm going to take the processes and the 10 steps I'm doing today, and I'm just going to do those 10 steps online. It's a re-engineering of the business, right? From what happens at the property to moving your customers from face-to-face to online, to how you take payments, how you change prices, how you monitor prices, how you deliver logistically, right, and coordinate. And kind of with that in mind, could you guys give us some examples of how you leverage the technology to automate and what impact that had through your changes?
Well,
I'll let you,
even your gates, how the customers get in now. It used to be a guy who showed up in the morning and opened the gate and showed up at 6 o'clock and closed the gate. And now they're coming in with their phone and their Bluetooth and going straight through the property and then hitting their no-key lock and getting into their unit without touching anything, seeing anybody, doing anything. And that has to work with your payment center. It has to work with your software. Everything has to work together. But it's changed how we operate. It's changed how many people you need at a store. If you need a person working at a facility, you may not. Some people choose not to. It's opened it up so you can do business however you want.
Yeah, and to piggyback on Noki, right? Without Noki, a facility manager has to walk every morning, check the locks, make sure all that. With Noki, you pull up a dashboard and you know which ones are locked and which ones are unlocked or clear, and just efficiency. I mean, what took an hour or two in the morning now takes 10 minutes if they go get a coffee first. And like the BI tools also. I mean, not just operationally like on the facility level, but the amount of data that we're going to get because of the technology that's being driven right now. We're going to be able to make decisions in real time, where in the past you'd have some intern or like an admin person pulling data and getting it into an Excel, and someone maybe knows Excel, gets it and has to sift through it. And now it's like, my G-Dog over there, Gandar, he's just building these like really cool G-Dog. If I give you a nickname, I like you, G-Dog, wherever you are. He's building these things that you're going to have these dashboards, and you can see, like, we're closing shop on Tuesday. No one's moving out on Tuesday. If they're going to move out on Tuesday, we'll close down shop. But you'll also start to see attribution channels, where people are coming in, based on where they're coming in. Are they coming online? Are they coming in the store? How long do they stay? If they come through Sparefoot. And now you can start to spend your focus and your time on those attribution channels from a back end to make sure that you're spending your marketing money correctly. So all that data and technology is just going to totally just succinct.
Yeah, and just to, it's like we don't even have to get complicated here, and shout out to Tenant for having this like in March 19, 2020 when COVID started. But like, can everyone here do online rentals? Does everyone do full ID verification, online rentals?
Yep.
People can move in, they get their gate code? Because some people still aren't doing that. A lot of people aren't doing
that still. Yeah.
They still want the manager, oh no, you got to stop by, you got to get the ID, and I got to look you in the whites of your eyes to make sure you match up.
Because you know that's a real ID.
What? And no, it's a
You're
real
staring
ID.
at it. You know your eyes. Your manager absolutely knows
you got
that
the
that's
bouncer.
a fake ID.
Yeah. But that's fundamentally changed how people interact with our product. And then you mentioned the Noki locks. There's so many applications in the future with Bluetooth locks and sharing access. Before it was like, hey, I got my camping gear, meet me in my house, here's my gate code, here's my keys. Now to be able to like disseminate out access and even the applications that has beyond. I mean, the thing that everyone's been chasing forever is the commercial customer. And that's really going to tap into that. The ability eventually for a company like Tenant to say, here's our API, come in and grab some, 20 units when you need them. Stay as long as you need to, and then when you're gone, you're gone. You don't need to come in and visit the office and do paperwork. Like, that's going to change our product, and I think that's very forward-looking. I know it's been a vision of Lance's for a long time, and just in general for our industry, nobody really can serve the commercial tenant well, right? Going to BI tools, we've had something called ClickView for years. I'm able to, when I used to have a client meeting, I have my management history for occupancy statistics. I got my financials. I got my marketing information, and I'm trying to look at all this information. I'm flipping back and forth. I'm writing numbers. So years ago, we went to a BI tool called ClickView, and now I have essentially what is like a management history report with accounting data, marketing data, operating data. And for me, I can prepare for a meeting in 10 minutes.
How long did it take you before?
Oh, it'd be 45 minutes sometimes, 50 minutes of my time, and that's like valuable time for me to just prepare for maybe talking to one investor in one property when I might have 10 investors on those properties. ProRise has been excellent for us. We used to manually do our rent increases and change our rates manually, and let's just say they didn't change as much as I would have liked them to. Now, our rates are changing daily unless we, step in and we can say, no, we actually want it to be $5 more or $5 less. So we have a guy that still does that. But even before, when we had moved to a revenue management system, we were still spending, 2 hours, of 3 or 4 people's times twice a week just to make decisions on pricing and everything. So it's, ProRise has, automated a lot of that for us, and their reporting's incredible too because I've talked to a few people here about this today, but that saves me a ton of time because I can now look back on a graph 5 years and I can see the trends with occupancy, the seasonality. It trends, occupancy next to actual occupied rates. So, your owners will call you, oh, my occupancy's down. It's at 87. I want it to be at 92. But you go, last year you were like $20,000 a month less. You should be very happy to be at 87 and have that extra margin to get up to 92. So it's just an incredible time saver for like our staff and how we look at numbers and everything. And what's great about what you guys are doing with the tenant warehouse is, I'd say Tenant and Hummingbird are the only place where you spoke to this already, but where we're looking at attribution and that's feeding directly into the data about our customers. I remember it was Beth years ago did a demonstration where she showed, attribution, and it was just like silent in the room. And I'm going, this is like the greatest thing ever. Like, does anyone realize what this is? So I guess those are just a few examples of like how things are changing so we can analyze properties quicker, interact with our tenants, and make things convenient for them. And again, like Pam mentioned, our customers are demanding different things from us, and if we don't respond to that, I still see sites out there today, no website at all. Or no rates. Send us a thing to inquire. They don't even have a real email address. Like, some people just haven't kept up with the time. And I think what people don't realize is they go, well, I'm saving a little bit of money not doing this or that. But they're not thinking of the flip side of how much money they're leaving on the table because they're not serving their customers. They're thinking about...
It's not even comparable, actually, if you really look at it.
Right. So, yeah.
But you can't see it till you implement it. Have any of you been able to, in certain markets, been able to create a competitive advantage as a result of some of the changes that you've made? And what would those be?
I have, and I'm in some small towns, so we're the only one that has no key locks, and we were the first one to put a gate in, and the first one that actually stopped doing stock cards to keep track of our rent.
Oh, wow.
So everyone in town now, they've got websites. Everybody's sort of come into this millennium.
So they're having to catch up.
They're having to catch up, and it's okay. They thought we were stupid for charging for insurance. Like, why would we want to do that? Now they all are, because they figured out what great profit center it is. So but I'm in small towns, so I'm not in, Dane's got a whole different animal to compete with. I've got 3-4 facilities in some of my towns.
Yeah, and even in big markets still, you're seeing no gates or just people who have held onto these properties forever, and they're not doing anything to move their properties forward. So again, like you said, that's who we'd love to buy. Those are the best buys in the world because we know there's value in what we add, or in adding this technology. So,
and to add in for us from a competitive standpoint, being with the tenant vertical stack, I mean, we have the confidence now, as I was mentioning in my previous panel, to basically quote unquote extend our hours because we're allowing our managers across 3 regions to basically help any tenant, a move in, a transfer, anything, because they're all
connected.
Yeah. They can see everything real time. And if it's a call-in, it's a call-in. They don't know where they're at. They just say, "Welcome to Storelocal. How can I help you? My name's Jesse." And then they go, what were the cross streets, whatever that dialogue is, and boom, they pull it up and they can help them. And they could be in Oregon, and the other people could be in Oklahoma after hours.
So you've been able to increase those hours, but not impact
without
your cost.
Without the payroll.
Yeah.
And payroll's the number one expense on that and property taxes. You can't get rid of taxes, fortunately.
Right.
I'll go back and kind of restate something I already said too, is being able to see what all your competitors are doing in the market to be able to react to that. So if they're suddenly dropping the rates or the rates are climbing, you're not just sitting there. Like, I look at I'm in ProRise looking at the competitors, and there's some that it's just a straight line all the way across their prices. It's never moved. Everyone else is moving around. During the summer they're changing their prices. During the winter, just same thing. I mean, even like you see that with U-Haul, and a lot of which I like because they're usually like the higher in the market. But there's your ability to rapidly change, see what your competitors are doing, and come up with your own pricing strategy because that data is available to you is so much easier than trying to go look at everyone's website. Like the process used to be, call your competitors, go say hi, figure out what their pricing is, fill out this competition survey, and then it's going to go to the DM, and then the DM is going to look at it and try to do it. So the ability for us to rapidly change our rates is a competitive advantage, and then just right now we're kind of bookending our prices so we can be both the low price in the market and the high price in the market because we can see what different people are doing. Yep. And that's all a function of doing I'm not going to think of the word right now, but like
dynamic value pricing.
Yeah, well, just like we have we might have the same unit, and depending where it's located, value pricing. Being able to do that value pricing can offset some of these strategies that your other competitors have, and not everyone's doing that. And then obviously the Mariposa website's made improved on that even further because they're clicking on a $74 5x10, and then on the next screen they're seeing the different options, and you can upsell, and you're doing things now on your web page that you used to have to only do in your office, right? Hey, let's get them in for $74, but when they come in, let's rent it for $120 or $100.
And with the good, better, best pricing, you're picking. There's psychologically there's a certain buyer, certain percentage of the buyers that are always going to want to know that they're getting the best thing, and you're just driving to the top, and so you're collecting that up front as well. Yeah, very good. Anything else you want to add to that?
No.
So, like we mentioned earlier, besides the digital transformation, the really main driver to this is the rapidly changing, consumer behavior and minds. And I think if you look at what's happened just for storage customers in the last 10 years, if you look up here, the customer has changed. It's now majority millennials. And again, I know Lance has said that there was a time where everybody thought self-storage was going to be not in demand in the future because millennials would never own anything. And I think the way they use the product is very different. But they are now the largest, user of self-storage and renter. Obviously the pandemic had a huge impact on shifting everything to online. Some of the things that I found surprising though is over 2/3 of the renters are women, and the change in use of the product. So the baby boomers, they report visiting their storage facility maybe once every 6 months to 9 months, maybe just store and forget. And they're storing records in there and who knows what. But the millennials and the Gen Zs say they report that they visit their facility twice a month on average, so every other week. The reports are saying that 65% of the renters are female. The millennials had, through a survey, said that they visit the male or female. They visit the facility on average twice a month.
What is it?
He's trying to get me in trouble. This is being recorded. I'm not biting.
I think you just ignore.
So, kind of with that behind it, I mean, like, has that impacted at all how you look at the product that you offer, how you present it online, as part of this whole transformation,
Definitely.
and what you have to offer?
Well, first of all, you have to be online.
Yeah.
I mean, you still do have some people that will drive by with the truck full of stuff. We get, occasionally we see that, but you have to be online. And if you can't rent a unit from your cell phone, you're going to lose a huge percent of the
majority, I think, at this point.
No, agree 100%. And like we talked about earlier today and yesterday as well, and the less friction, the quicker you can get them to convert, the less clicks. It's going to be a no-brainer, and
no more 20 minutes going over the rental agreement.
Holy cow! Right? I mean when I joined the group with AJ, one of the first things he had me do, he goes, "No one knows you, so go out to all of our facilities and secret shop them before they know who you are." And I remember I was down at our local facility, and our manager, nice lady, she was helping a customer and giving them a 10-minute answer for every question, and I sat there and I was just like, yeah, like if I'm renting, like I'm out. Like I'm not going to sit here and wait 40 minutes to rent a unit, right? And
kiosk does the same.
I think the kiosk, yeah, exactly. I think that's why that wasn't.
And yeah,
There's no way I'm standing behind two people in line and waiting
Yeah.
for someone who can't figure out the screen.
That's right.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? And so the more that you can drive people to your site, have them really convert within like 3 or 4 clicks, your conversion rate is going to go through the roof.
I mean,
You used to say that it took longer to rent a storage unit than it did to buy a car.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I went and bought my mom a car one day, and I realized it took longer at one of my facilities to rent. That was a
Yep.
big aha moment for me, like
Yeah.
15 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it was.
I mean, I'll just kind of follow what they said, but there's a new generation of renters. Their entire perception of your business
Yeah.
is online. Like they're gonna judge whether you're a quality. You might have the cleanest, nicest facility in town, but if your website looks like crap and it's old and outdated and it takes too long to load, they'll just leave, and they're gonna go, "This isn't a well-run business. I don't want to be part of this." If I almost kind of want to go to the flip side too, though, because I think what's being required of us as operators is we do have a new generation of people who do want to interact with us primarily through their phone, maybe chat, whatever, but also still having those services that do cater to our older tenants. We're having to have those call
Right.
centers with extended hours because they want to talk to somebody and make sure they did everything right. So it's the technology is helping us again do more with less. And so we're serving those old customers and the needs they have. We can't forget about them. But yeah, being able to serve these new customers. If you don't look good online, you don't have good pictures, you don't have live unit, they're just going to be like, I'm not going to waste 2 seconds on this thing. I'm going to move on. And what's bad about that, going back to what I was talking about earlier, is it's almost unquantifiable how much business you lose when you don't have a quality website. Yeah, you can see that people are bouncing off the website or whatever, but it's pretty hard to quantify. And I think when people don't want to change, they don't think about that. They don't
Right.
think of the possibilities of how much money they're leaving on the table because they haven't implemented these technologies. So
To add what to Dane was saying, and well, we always talk about marrying the technology to our on-site resources and staff. We look at the acquisition channels online being like our bread and butter. We want it to be our bread and butter, but the managers are really there for retention. And the longer that they can build relationships, they can customer service oriented when people come in. That will incrementally increase the length of stay, which is incrementally increase our revenue at the end of the day.
I want to add a couple things here. Travis, I think your most recent question you asked through the magazine was, "Are we too cheap as an industry?" Was that what you?
I said as a group, we are generally too cheap.
As a group, you're generally too cheap. One of the things that was interesting for me coming from software and other industries into self-storage was a couple of things. One is, if you look at the top bullet there, as an industry, self-storage is way underspent in technology versus all other industries. The average industries spend up to 5% of their gross sales on technology to help run the business and be more efficient. I would say you guys are far under that. And what is amazing to me is the attention that an extra $100 per month of software across a whole property is given versus what you're saying, Dane, which is, can you even, because you can't quantify it, so you don't realize it. You can relate to the price of the software, but what you can't relate to is you probably lost thousands by an inefficient website, right? Or some of the other automation that you did. There was one of our customers and Storelocal members was mentioning to me that when they went fully automation and online, that 60% of their rentals occur after 7 p.m. at night, and 98% of their rentals move in without anyone ever talking to them. I think that's how people want to. Like, I go home at night, right, and I don't have time during the day unless it's at a break. But if it is, it's on my phone, try to figure out what I'm going to do, and I just want to get something taken care of as fast as I can so I can move in this coming weekend or whatever. But I don't know that we don't look at it that way in this industry, and I think it hurts us, actually.
yeah, and how much lost business do you have when you don't just make that rental right then and there, and they maybe do a reservation, but then they look somewhere else? Like, that's kind of hard to really quantify when that happens too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Now, I'd say the good news is this industry is just in general, I think, lagging other industries in being impacted by that. So I was talking to Neil earlier at break, and he's in the hospitality sector. He's like, hospitality is so far ahead of self-storage. I mean, they digitized the locks and everything else, so long ago, and they, if they didn't have that and they didn't have the ability to rent, to rent their hotel room online and check in online and get a digital key, they would be in big trouble, right, by now. But we have time. Hospitality is ahead of us. I'd say even the service industry, like plumbers and contractors, are ahead of us. Restaurants are ahead of us. Lance mentioned Toast. The transportation industry, Uber, and everything else have kind of already converged. So, however, it reminds me of this diagram that I've used in the past. It's called the STARS diagram by Michael Watkins, and it's a way to kind of assess if you go into a new situation, like what are you dealing with? Are you dealing with a potential turnaround, a realignment? Is this a startup that you're in? Are you in accelerated growth? And depending on where you're at, there's different challenges and there's different opportunities. And I would argue that storage is in a moment of realignment, and a moment of realignment is when it's been very, very successful up to now. Right? And what people have done for the last 20 or 30 years has brought them great success. But to get to the next decade, they need to change. There's a need to change. And one of the challenges I highlighted there, because I've been in this situation before, I've done turnarounds, I've done realignments, I'm now in the middle of a startup that's going towards aggressive growth. By far the hardest job for me has been realignments, and that's because most people in the organization don't see yet the need to change. That's the biggest challenge of that one. And you guys I know are on the forefront of that. So my next set of questions are sort of around that, which is, how did you navigate that change when you first made it? And what are the lessons learned that you can share? And were there pockets of resistance, and what did you do about that?
I have a good example of resistance. I have an employee who's probably one of the first beta testers on Hummingbird. Hated it. For how many years I've been listening to how much she hates it. I tried to sell her on it, how great it is, and then something would glitch, or the whole thing. When I finally stopped using SSM along with it, I didn't think she was going to stay. She says, no, you need to keep SSM. I said, that's great. You pay for it, you can keep it. I've just had it. We're all so tired of listening to her. She sent me an email today after I sent her pay link talking about how great it is and how wonderful and how far it's come. And she says, I know I really didn't like it before, but some of this stuff is really cool. I've been converted. It took years to get here, and I shared it with Davey first. So that actually says a lot. It shows that the program has come a long way, but she fought the change the entire way. What do you do? At some point, it just came down to maybe this isn't where you want to work.
The accountants like the change,
Yeah, there's particular areas that are more resistant.
I feel like I'm in the Star Wars movie because there's so much resistance. It's like, but this is because you're in a realignment, because you've had a successful model up till now. I'm in a realignment, and just my previous role, I was head of marketing for hospitality, and I had to lead the digital transformation, and that was in the early 2010, 2012s when we started our digital transformation, and we met the same headwinds with all the resistance and everything, but we got there. And we'll get there in the storage industry as well. And I think what is happening is people are starting to wake up in the self-storage industry now with the REITs playing their games. Before a REIT came in, it was like, oh, yeah, they're going to raise the prices. We're all going to win. And now it's like, oh, a REIT came across. Now they're going to kill all of our rates. And people are starting to understand that they can't get a property management system like us. We got onto Hummingbird over the summer, so I got to enjoy that. And it was fought with, well, this is what we've always done.
Right.
Yeah, this is what we've always done. We've always done a refund this way. And I'm like, well, congratulations. Welcome to the 21st century. I think I got written up for it, too, actually. Someone went to HR and was like, Jesse's being mean.
Ageism. Ageism.
But, that's the thing, though. It's like if you're trying to get on to the next greatest thing with technology, but you want to just hold on to the old ways you're doing things, you're going to lose. Like, you
Right.
have to leverage the technology. You have to have that mindset that, you know what, things can be done differently, they can be more efficient, and just have that open mind. And that's the mindset I was telling you about. That's probably the hardest thing to change in a company
Right.
culture.
Sounds like being a leader.
You got to be a leader, right? And that's why they call me Teflon Don, because they're like, that guy's mean, you know. And I'm like, I don't care. Like,
Sometimes a bit of a salesman too.
Yeah, you got to be a salesman, and it's like, you know, it's like sailing. You know, you got to set the course and go, and you're going to hit tailwinds, you're going to get headwinds, but you just have to keep going. You can't be like, you know, halfway to North America, and the Pilgrims go, oh, it's getting tough. We're just going to turn around, right? You just got to keep going. Throw some people overboard.
So,
I think vision is super important here. Where, you know, like, I want to, like, my goal has always been, like, I want to be better at the REITs than storage. I want to have better tools. I want to have better processes, and I know I'm going to have to fight to get there. I know what I need to get there. Wasn't available to Platinum, and that's kind of why we joined in with Storelocal, and, you know, we supported Tenant because we're like, we can't do this alone. We got to build the best tools in the industry, and then we got to customize those tools to be even better than the people who have the same tools as us, because we're all competitors at the end of the day, right? So I think what is the why, though? When I'm, like, working with people in my organization, why am I putting you through this? Why am I making your life hell and having to change this and convert to a new software? And I think if you have a strong enough why and you can really explain that, then people are willing to grit their teeth and get through whatever junk they got to go through to get there. And so, you know, we were a beta tester too, so I think I burned through a lot of my balance sheet with different employees, like assets that I had. But I think they always knew why. And, you know, the people that were dealing with the problems directly, it was a little bit harder with them. But I luckily had people in, you know, place of the leadership like Renee who were able to keep reminding them, this is why, this is why, this is why we're going to get there. And, you know, I think anyone could do anything with the right why. And a lot of people never say that. They just go, hey, we're going to a new software.
right.
Well, why? What's better? Right? And I think you need to look for things within an organization that are really important to them. And, like, especially when transitioning, you know, to Hummingbird, like, I love the lead attribution. I love on my MSR being able to see leads versus having to go to a different place and having legit leads that came through a website, GA4, and everything's feeding that data in. That was a big why for me. But, you know, out in the field, like, the payment links and things like that are whys for different people too. So I think every organization has a why, and even if you look at the legacy softwares, oh, this one did a good accounting export. Oh, this one had a good CRM, right? And thankfully, you know, you guys are building such an incredible product. I think everyone's why is going to fall into the bucket of Hummingbird, you know, eventually as you guys continue to build stuff out. But I think explaining that to your employees, and I think that's like a form of, like, mutual respect to be like, hey, I'm going to put you through this, but here's where we're going, and here's why we're doing it. And, you know, I think since, like, we've converted, like, again, like, it's been all smooth sailing since then, and people wake up and there's a new feature and they're stoked that they're on the software. So
You got to get to the other side, though, first, right?
Mhm.
So you have to get through that period.
yeah.
And you kind of took us back to the very beginning there by that's why I started with the why, like, why change, right? Because you have to make the case. You know, at Tenant, we recently completely changed how we develop software from a methodology perspective. And a lot of companies, digital companies, have gone through that transformation where the old way was, it was called waterfall, but basically you build a plan that says in 6 months we're going to release all this stuff, and then you start getting to work and you're 4 months in and you realize you're 6 months behind. But you don't find that out till you're 4 months in. And agile development is what all the software companies use, where they break work down into very small chunks. They assign them to teams. They know who's doing what, and we measure every 2 weeks. But training people to do that, and it's like it's a transition just like any transition, right? And you said a lot of things I want to reiterate that we experienced as well. First of all, it's got to be decided at the top. Like Lance and I had to agree we're going to do this, we're going to stick to it, because we also then have to abide by the rules. Because the minute Lance or I break that and say, yeah, I know we said this, but I want to go back and do this other thing, then it all falls apart, right? But you also have to explain the why, and then you have to find early wins, right? And then I think you said, you mentioned Renee, right? You got to organize advocates on your team that will reinforce and speak to that. And I think those are some of the things I've learned. But are there any other advice that you would give anybody in the room or on the video that will be watching regarding if you're going to go through this, you're going to embark on this for the first time? Like, what advice do you have? Like,
you have to do your homework. Going to a trade show and looking at a demo of a software is not going to answer the question 6 months later, do they let you use your own credit card processor? You have to know and talk to a lot of people and know what questions to ask to find out if it'll work for you. And it's great. I mean, I would have been a storage customer if they were ready at the time I was ready to pull the trigger. They were still a couple months out. I'm very happy because in that few months they changed to a closed API and I wasn't locked into that. But you have to know what to ask and what questions to ask.
Great idea.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, align your technology stack like we've done with Tenant, and then have those conversations within your network and your preferred vendor network to make sure things align.
Yep.
If Lance and I talk all the time, just like sidebar things. I throw like all these like little stink bombs at him, and he probably why he has no hair, but I'm picking his brain, right? Because I don't want to go down a path. He's been in the storage business a lot longer than I have, right? So I have these crazy ideas, and I don't want to be going half-cocked somewhere. I got a resource right here who's in the technology company. So if I'm saying, hey, I want to go do this weird thing, and he's like, don't do it, then I'm not going to put all of our effort and time into doing something when I know that he knows what's going on a lot better than I do in overall industry, because he talks to 100 people from one person I talk to. So like really get those partnerships, that network, and then just have those conversations. Dane and I, we both of our operating teams, we call once a month and just kind of hang out for an hour and just talk about things. So we're not like in a silo or in our own echo chamber, and just, hey, what are you seeing? Like, are you seeing these things that we're seeing in different markets? And it's just a breath of fresh air to be able to bounce things off and share ideas that you're not going to come up with everything by yourself. So even with technology, you're not going to know all the questions to ask either. So that's why you got to say, hey, when you went to Hummingbird, like, what did you ask, or what was your response with all of this? And that's my advice.
I'll reiterate what you guys said. You need to make sure what equipment you have every store. I think you guys are integrated with practically everything now, but I think we had 2 different gate softwares at one property, and they had to support that. That happened when we didn't figure it out until we actually made the jump, and we made it through. But a lot of people move over and go, oh, I didn't know they had this integration. So make sure all the integrations, because we all have these other softwares we're using, make sure those integrations are aligned. Quantify all your gate software and all that. Make sure all that's aligned, and that's something we need to do as operators. And, I think things will go pretty smoothly, and then, set some expectations for your accounting that's going to, one little weird month that they're going to hate, but, set expectations there. And then going back to kind of what I was saying earlier, and for anyone that hasn't made the jump because, there's one little thing that, Hummingbird doesn't have, that's on my software, I'm going to go back to 2 points. 1 point, there's things that Hummingbird's doing that you're missing out on today.
Yeah.
You're losing money today, not being on the software. So you can wait for that little module that needs to come out or whatever. But also when you get onto Hummingbird, I think what's really unique about it is it's so customizable, and you guys are adding features every day. So in the future, I might have a totally different platform on Hummingbird, than Pam or Jesse, because I've spent all this time customizing it and tweaking it. Well, you're getting late to the game. I'm going to already be dialed in, and you're going to be a year behind or 18 months behind what my organization is doing because of the capabilities of Hummingbird. So I think that's something to keep in mind, too, is the time is ticking against you if you haven't made that move yet. And you might think you're saving yourself a little bit of grief with some feature that's missing in Hummingbird, but you're really hurting yourself in the long term, and it's one of those things that's really hard to quantify. Again, going back to that kind of same point.
Yeah, I'd like to kind of reinforce what both you and Pam said there, which is don't make your decision for just a moment in time, right? Because if you do, you might get boxed in again. And then that's why I think a platform is a really important thing to get on. A platform is something that's extendable, that will grow over time. Because as that evolves, you want that flexibility. And so there is no such thing as parity. I mean, you can do a parity at a moment in time, but tomorrow, something that might be a little inefficient in one area could completely leapfrog the other. What you need to look at is how extendable is this train that I'm getting on, right? How long do those tracks go? And I think if you look at like SAP, Oracle, and NetSuite, none of those ERPs are parity with each other. The question is, what's the right fit for you, right? And which one do you think is going to take you the furthest? And I think that's one of the things that we always try to explain to people. The other advice I would give is look at your reward systems too, right? So if you did, your manager, I would say, was a drag along. There's always drag alongs. Some you lose during the change, right? But others you'll finally drag along and convert. And then others are with you to begin with. But for those that are more resistant, look at their risk and their reward. So like as Lance said with accountants, there's a lot of risk and change. They want to be very precise, right? So how do you get them, how do you maybe reward them to take that risk? Because if you're going to ask your accountant, or in my opinion, if you're going to ask the operations manager who's responsible for things running like, smooth as oil, right, or an accountant, should we change? The answer is going to always be, well, no. I mean, unless maybe you look at how you reward them. So think about those things as well.
And even add on to that to take, like that's what I'm sure you guys did with your teams. You're like, if something goes wrong, there's one person that is taking responsibility for everything as we go through this process. As long as you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, if I'm the one making us make the move, I'm the one that's in trouble. So I think that's important to do too as a leader.
So kind of as we start to wrap up toward Q&A, I think one of the good things is we can see the digital transformation. It's already played out in so many other industries, right? It's starting to play out in our industry. If after the last 2 days you haven't seen it with AI and the data warehouse and Charm and text payments and all that, then I don't know what to tell you. But it is definitely coming. But we are still sort of in the realignment, which is as leaders you're going to have to explain why the need to change. The interesting thing I found in my career is if you don't address it at the realignment, it has a funny thing of becoming a turnaround. Because everybody will be, oh my God, we have to change. Well, you guess what? That's like changing TSA security after 9/11, right? A little late. So, is there any before we go to Q&A? Is there any parting suggestions you have? And why do you think some people are struggling so much right now with saying, I'm not ready to change?
Changing, especially, let's just say Hummingbird, changing your facility software is probably the worst thing we can do as an operator. I mean, you're going to lose some data. You're going to have some headaches. I've done the thing where you do one store at a time. I've done it where you rip off the Band-Aid and do all of them. I don't know which way's better. Depends on the person. You just have to make the decision to do it, and that's really hard for some people.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah.
Or?
Well, it's hard. It's hard. Life is hard. Sorry.
Yeah.
And again, Teflon Don, right?
Life is hard.
I think I got written up because I told someone the adapt or die. I think that's what I said.
Oh, now that it's coming back to you now.
And I think they took it literally. Life is hard. Things are hard in life. And did you just not learn to walk? You're just like, well, walking's hard. I'm just going to crawl my entire life. No, you got to grow. And as a company, you have to grow. And like you mentioned, right? You got to have good leadership. Leadership has to understand the path forward. And then you have to have someone who's that stakeholder. I'm the stakeholder in our company for Hummingbird. People come running to my office every day like the sky's on fire. And so I said, all right, sit down. What's going on? Was it a one-time thing? Is it always happening? Did we put a support ticket in? If you did, what's the ticket number? And it's one of those things that ever since I took a total accountability for just being the guy. I come down once a month. AJ has me fly down once a month. Tenant people probably hate it. I should have an office here, but
we love it.
But I'm the representative, right? And I sit down. How's it going? What's going on? What are we innovating? How are we getting here? And once you have that stakeholder in your company and someone who can just lead that digital transformation or the technology transformation, you're going to have a lot better chance at winning the war.
I mean, I don't know. I think staying on some of the legacy software, especially seeing the trajectory and all the stuff we've seen in the last 2 days and everything with Hummingbird, it's like a Tesla where you're going to wake up and you're going to have more features. And I liken it to like driving a car and hearing a sound, and you just like kind of don't address it.
You turn up the radio.
And like, the longer you drive on that thing, the worse the problem's going to be later.
Yep.
Right.
The longer you wait to convert,
Absolutely.
the more behind you're going to be in the future. And so you're just putting off short-term pain
Yep.
for much more chronic and long-term
Yeah,
pain in
yeah.
the future. So
Dane, do you remember when we were transitioning all of your properties? It was middle of December. The holidays were coming up, and all of a sudden we got, at the very last minute, you're going to get this swell up of, oh no, maybe we shouldn't do this. It's the holidays. It's like,
No,
but we wanted a full year of
Yeah.
data, right?
Yeah.
But we powered through, and it went okay. It
well,
went well.
remember,
I wish I would have thought.
I
But you had to make the call.
I remember you saying you're brave because my daughter was born on November 21st. It was a scheduled CSA. You're like, you're really doing this to yourself. But you guys handled it. I mean, Renee did a ton of work on that, and our whole team did a ton of work on
Yeah.
it. But it didn't, like, the sky didn't fall on our and crush our office or anything while I was.
But they were at the last minute ready to kick the can another quarter or two or whatever
Yeah.
if they could.
Oh, totally. As soon as I was out of the office, the leader was gone.
Yeah, there was a coup attempted. I can tell
That's
you.
actually pretty smart. I like how you
Renee
did
did a
that.
good job, though.
To remember that one.
Okay, well, thanks. I really appreciate the time. I think we can open it up to Q&A, Travis, if you'd like.
Any questions for the panelists? It's Friday. Everybody's trying to get
Yep.
to the bar.
It's pretty interesting, all three of you. We didn't pick this panel for this reason, but all three of you have changed the signs on your properties.
Well, don't tell Travis my signs aren't officially changed yet, but I'm working on it.
Oh, I know.
That's a big commitment.
Yeah.
And why? Where's the why there?
I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I don't know, Lance.
Because we're stronger together, and with scale, I'm never going to scale to 1,000 properties.
Right.
And I'm never going to build some of the tools that we're going to build together, or have the brain trust that we have together as operators, on my own. And I think we all got to get in the boat and row together, both from a tech standpoint, but also from the brand standpoint. Unfortunately, I've had to admit to myself I'm not going to be public storage. I'm not going to have 2,000 facilities or whatever. But I know with other great operators in this room, we can really make a dent in this industry, and really, even some of the stuff that Travis was showing with those numbers and that benchmarking. I don't know if it's sunk in for everyone what that means, but we could be one of the biggest sources for what's going on in the industry, and the numbers that people look to, and
That by the end of the year.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Power of numbers, and AJ. I mean, we're out trying to acquire as many facilities, but we're not going to get as many facilities as Public Storage anytime soon either. So, the more that we can grow together and just become a national brand when it comes to store local storage, and then also become a collective of information and just information sharing on just like the Hummingbird, property management system, and just to innovate that tech stack. Power of numbers. The more that we get on there, we start to benchmark, and now we're getting those reports, and they're going to be anonymized. But when people are telling me that, AJ walks into my office, I swear to you, I hope he doesn't watch this because he's going to laugh, but he'll get mad first, but then he'll laugh. He'll go, "What the heck's going on in Tulsa? Everyone's at 99%, and I'm like, do you know that though? How do you know everyone's at 99% occupancy? And oh well, he called Bob's, and they said that they were at 99%. So I call him. I'm like, hey, do you guys have any 10x10s? Yeah. Well, I'm moving. I need 5. And they're like, ooh, I don't know if we got 5. Let me check. You know what? We actually have just 5. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to be all over the place. Do you have 5 all next to each other? Yeah, actually we do. I'm like, you're not 99%. But the more that we can just take all that data, we can start to benchmark. And so now as we grow, we're not just regionalized right now with store local storage. We're pretty much regionalized a little bit here and there. But once we become nationalized and we can really start to understand our market and say, okay, the Southeast right now, average is 88% occupancy. The Northwest, we're at 78%. Instead of just saying nationally we're at 86, and everyone's trying to get to 86 when everyone has a different market. So.
Can we just say, I just want to kick the REIT's butt too. I want to be better at this industry from a tech standpoint, from a scale standpoint, and that's within the
We
reach.
already are. They weren't even, Extra Space couldn't rent a unit online before COVID.
Yeah, seriously. And you know what? If they're so great, why do they have to lower their prices to that level?
Good
That's
question.
my question. I want them to answer that.
We should brawl at SSI.
Yeah. So, I want to, it's always been, I've always said I want to do business better than the REITs. And, I think we're playing our best ball with, everyone in this room that supported Tenant, supported Storelocal. This is the best ball as an independent operator that you can play if you have dreams of being the best in this industry.
Yep.
So.
That was really well said, Dane.
Yeah, really well. Thank you.
That was really nice.
Well, I want to wrap up by, first of all, congratulating all of you, because it takes a lot to change, and you're not always everybody's best friend, and it's a slugfest till you do get to the other side. But then you see that was a big win today.
That was a huge
That was a
win.
huge win. And I'm sure it made our day, and I'm sure it made your day. And then you
Dinner,
can,
but we made Daisy's
because
day.
what you've done is you future-proofed your organizations, but it was tough.
Brad, we got one more question.
Oh,